Hello and welcome to our press conference on RVN TV. I'm your host, Jim DeLorenzo, the principal of Jim DeLorenzo Public Relations. You can find me online at jimdelorenzo.com. A reminder that I'm always available to answer your questions about public relations, how it works, what it is, how it can help you. Please feel free to email me at jim@jhdenterprises.com, contact me through LinkedIn, or on Twitter, where my handle is @JHD16. In my public relations career, I've had the good fortune to meet many interesting people: athletes, entrepreneurs, reporters, coaches, authors, executives, editors, entertainers, and innovators. My guest today is an old friend, Keith Green, a communications professional with experience in the sports and entertainment industries as well as corporate communications. In 2015, Keith and his family launched the Autism MVP Foundation. This nonprofit 501c3 organization is comprised entirely of volunteer board members who have decades of experience in fundraising, marketing, PR, events, education, graphic design, sponsorship, and digital media. I have a few questions for Keith about how the organization started and what the vision is behind it. But for those of you who are watching this online, I invite you to check out their website, autismmvp.org. And one of the reasons we're together today is that April is Autism Awareness Month, and I know that you've got a lot of activities planned.
I do.
But I wanted to know from you, I know of your background in the sports and entertainment and PR world.
Sure.
How did you come to found Autism MVP?
Sure. So, well, my wife and I have a young son. He turns 13 in October, and he was diagnosed with autism a little shy of his 3rd birthday.
Okay.
And, you know, when you have a child or a family member that's diagnosed with autism, there's no roadmap. There really isn't. Certainly there's books and resources for people to look at and become familiar with, but they call it the autism spectrum for a reason, and people who are on the spectrum can certainly have varying needs and abilities, intellectual ability, cognitive functioning, processing, comprehension, executive function, all these different things. And so it can be very challenging, extremely challenging for parents and caregivers to really know how to help their children or family member who has autism the best. And shortly after our son was diagnosed, we received some care for him through a government-funded early intervention program, and then also through private care, and certainly the school system where he was at the time.
Okay.
And when we started working with therapists and educators and different therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, physical therapists, people who do applied behavior analysis, all these different types of therapies, and working with these folks, a couple of things happened. We very much were inspired by working with these people who were making a difference in our son's life, and helping him progress, but also teaching us as parents different ways to help and interact with him. And that can be challenging. Those areas can be very challenging. But to have these people come into our homes or take him to different private practices or what have you, and to see how they were able to help him was very inspiring to my wife and me. And to not only see that, but then start to understand what is out there in the marketplace from a perspective of there's simply not enough educators and therapists in the marketplace to keep up with the demand of all these children and folks who are aging into adulthood that have autism. There's just not enough of these people in the marketplace to really keep up with the demand.
Right, they're not trained to help people.
Correct. Yeah, there's not
That's
the
like
proper
it.
training. There needs to be better training in some instances, but there also needs to be just more of these people. We need to get more people into special education. We need to get more people into these areas, like I mentioned, PT and OT and applied behavior analysis. And when you look at the math and what is happening with the diagnosis rate in this country, where now it's the latest numbers from the CDC are, I believe it's 1 in 58 kids now who are born are diagnosed with autism. Well, if you do the math on that and weighed against the birth rate, that means more than 50,000 kids a year in this country are entering our school and our social systems who have autism. And there's this tremendous need and a void there. We need more special educators, like I said. We need more therapists, things like that. So we were very much inspired by those two areas, knowing that there's a need, which we were able to see through trying to find the right therapist that fit for our son's needs. And then just knowing that the people that we did work with were so inspiring and so helpful to us. So,
now how did you make the decision? How did you and your wife decide, okay, we can help? How can we help? And your mission is to educate and train professionals.
Well, it wasn't quite clear, to be honest, what we were going to do at the outset. I know I wanted to do something around autism and education. That was important. Taking a step back, my mom was a remedial reading teacher for more than 30 years. My wife is an educator. My wife, Donna, is an educator. I've been fortunate to teach at several different universities throughout my career. So I've always had that education aspect in my blood, so to speak. And we knew that looking at the different components and areas where we thought there was help needed, okay, let's focus on education and autism. And we also wanted to do, just like any other sort of business, so to speak, is find what is different. Okay, find what's different that'll set our organization apart from others. So we knew that there was this training aspect was needed, and we want to encourage more people to get in these fields. So we thought, what could we do? And the first thing I did when I set out after I started this and got the paperwork back from the IRS saying we were approved to be a 501c3 is reach out to half a dozen different universities who, different ones that I was either familiar with who I knew were leaders in sort of the marketplace, so to speak, around autism education, whether they have graduate or undergraduate programs in autism studies, whatever it might be. So after doing all that, and we sort of end up focusing at the outset, and it's been like that for a few years, with partnering with Monmouth University. And they have ended up, we've partnered with them on 2 different really terrific programs so far.
Well, talk about that for a moment, if you could.
Sure.
What were first of all, how did you encounter Monmouth the first time, and how did you become partners with them, and what are you doing right now?
Sure. So it literally started with me doing blind outreach on LinkedIn, believe it or not. And I reached out to half a dozen different schools, like I mentioned, and some came back with sort of varying degrees of interest and either wanting to meet or what have you. And when Monmouth came back to me, I reached out to somebody in the Department of Education who I did not know. Her name is Dr. Stacy Lauderdale. And she came back to me, she said, I'd love to meet with you, and we did, and that evolved into a meeting with the Dean of the School of Education, John Henning. And from there, we've evolved into a couple of different programs with them. And the first of which is called the Autism Program Improvement Project, which for the first sort of year and a half of doing this with the folks at Monmouth and us supporting it, didn't even have a name. But it has evolved to the point and grown so much where not only does it have a name, it has its own webpage on Monmouth University's website. And so far we've donated more than $40,000 to that program to fund it. And what is happening is that Dr. Lauderdale and Mary Haspel, another one of the educators in the Department of Education at Monmouth, have set up this program with 5 area school districts in Monmouth County, near where we live. And they are working with these different school districts and going in, taking data on observing what the teachers and the paraprofessionals are doing, interviewing the administrators, the different schools and school districts. And once they have gathered those findings, they're then going back and doing 2 things. They are feeding training back to those teachers in those districts where those studies are being created, and they're doing in-school training. And the great thing about that is that, to our knowledge, there's no other autism-focused program in the country that is going on where this this training is taking place in the schools.
Wow.
Okay, so usually the school districts will have in-service days all day long. I mean, all year long. We know about this from when we were kids, right? You have off from school, it's great, teacher in-service day, right? But this training is actually taking place in the school, which is terrific. And so not only are they feeding that information via training back to the participating school districts, but then they're also taking that data and information that they've found and then teaching it back to the students in their graduate autism program.
Oh, wow.
Which is terrific. So now these students that are going through Monmouth, they're being trained on the latest evidence-based practices, and they're going to have the most up-to-date training when they go into the field when they graduate. So that's
phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. It's been really terrific.
And that's
so far.
something that you've been able to initiate with them and kind of foster that.
Right.
Now, is there any plan to take that on a larger scale to other schools?
We're working on that. We're talking about that, thinking about that, trying to plan for that now, actually, and how that potentially gets replicated. We're not sure. There's some, the folks at Monmouth have taken the ball, run with this program, and we're supporting it financially, and it's their program that they've put together. But certainly, I think initially, what would be terrific if they're able to expand just beyond the districts that they've worked with. And I promise you, there isn't a public school in this country who couldn't use this type of observation, data collection, and training. Every single school district could absolutely use it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And to your knowledge, it's the only time this is being done in the country right now.
Yeah, to our knowledge, there's no other aspect of the in-school training once that observation has happened, once the data collection has happened, once the interviews with the administrators and the teachers have happened, and then again feeding that back into them, into the teachers and the paraprofessionals. Okay, here's what we found. So and the next step beyond that is that what we're talking about now is making a series of videos for the teachers, and that could be a way that it is quickly expanded, right? In terms of being able to share that type of video content with other teachers. So so it's exciting.
Now, what are some of the other programs, or what's the other program that you're working with?
The other one that we're working on is a scholarship program, and we just made a 3-year commitment starting in 2018 to fund a scholarship program for graduate students in Monmouth's Department of Education who have committed to or are committed somehow to working with either students or adults who have autism. So they're going through their program specifically for autism studies, and we feel this is important. We want to encourage people to stay on that path because we know it's important. We know that it is. There's that great need out there.
Right.
And look, there's no guarantee that they're going to stay on that path, but we hope that what we're doing from a scholarship component is going to encourage them and really encourage others, and I hope it inspires others to continue on that path.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I want to continue with you on this. I have some other questions for you, but we're going to take a quick break for some commercial messages.
Great.
We'll be right back.
Boardwalks built for fun. Legendary rock and roll clubs.
This is how we do it. Hip hop.
Casinos by the ocean.
Hip hop.
Now that's New Jersey. 130 miles of beautiful beaches, solid rock, and everything in between.
Look in the window.
Now that's New Jersey.
Burlington County College.
Is now Rowan College of Burlington County.
Still the same great faculty.
At a community college ranked top 50 in the nation.
Basically, we earn more and pay less.
RCBC students are accepted at Rowan University after graduation.
And get a bachelor's degree for around $30,000.
Online and Mount Laurel students get a 15% Rowan University tuition discount.
And have many scholarship opportunities.
So you earn more and pay even less.
Rowan College of Burlington County.
Your path to success.
They are the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen. But what does it take to strengthen our service members? What does it take to let them know that we stand behind them, wherever they are? What does it take to bridge the distance? and keep them connected to family, home, and country? And what does it take to prepare them for their future when their service to the nation is complete? What does it take to strengthen our service members so they can be the greatest force for good in the world? It takes a force. Be a force behind the forces. Share a message today at force.uso.org.
Welcome back to our press conference on RVN TV with Keith Green from Autism MVP Foundation. And we were just speaking about the growth of the program with Monmouth University.
Yes.
What was the impetus, how your son is doing?
Yeah.
You mentioned your son was kind of the beginning of this.
Sure.
How is he doing now, and what has changed in his life?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you asking. He's doing great. He really is. And that, you're right, that is what inspired the start of this, because we saw what a difference, even at a young age, the leaps and bounds and improvements he was making because of these folks that were working with him, either in-home through private care or out-of-home private care, or the wonderful educators in the school district, and all the different therapists, again, the OTs and PTs and speech therapy, and just the level of communication and comprehension and social interaction that we've seen.
It must be
incredible.
Intense.
It can be. It can be, yeah. Especially, sometimes kids don't realize why they're going through certain things.
Sure.
But in a way, he's also known no different, right? He's always had people coming to the house since a very young age. For the most part, in his schooling in the public school system, where we live in Little Silver, he's had an aide, a one-to-one aide in the classroom, and he spends time, in a resource room and a mainstream environment as well. So, so it's a lot of different things, and when you have the cooperation of private care, school district, and everybody's talking to each other and meshing very well, it can certainly help with better outcomes.
But it took you a while to find those people, right?
It did, yeah. It's not the easiest process. It's like sort of anything else in life. You have to find the right fit for for your family, or for in our case, our son. So what's the right personality that's going to match? What's the right school district that has the right resources? So that can be a challenge for parents, whether they just have a son or daughter who's just diagnosed, and they're of school age or not, and you got to figure out, is this the right fit for us, schooling wise, and are they going to have, or will they have the best resources for him or for her? And then what are the best personality matches, or the company philosophy for private care that's going to hopefully make for the sort of best outcomes, best hopeful outcomes. Yeah.
So the teachers and the professionals that you've met along the way kind of guided you towards. They inspired you to set up the foundation.
They did, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. It really did. It really, once I saw the difference that they were starting to make, it was a true inspiration. It really was. I mean, we were when our son was, before he was 3, when he was hungry, he was communicating in 1 or 2 word increments, and he would run over to the food cabinet and stand there. And that's one of the ways that he would communicate with us. And those are the things that you remember, but then when I look at where he is now, just shy of his 13th birthday, and I can have a conversation with him about what he wants to do this weekend, what happened at school, whatever it is, what happened in the movie we saw this weekend, whatever it is. Those things are just, you can see the tangible progress.
That's neat. That's what's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
Now, I think we have some images that we want to show our audience.
Sure.
Tell us what this is.
Sure. So this is a photo with some of the folks from the Department of Education at Monmouth University. There's a check presentation for $40,000 to fund the Autism Program Improvement Project. The two ladies I mentioned earlier, Dr. Stacy Lauderdale there is in the back, and Mary Haspel is in the red there. They're the two that are leading that program at Monmouth University. And then their president of the university is there, and then Dr. John Henning, is in the suit there, the tie. He's the dean of the school, the Department of Education, and the rest are just a couple of our board members, not all of them. But
Okay.
so yeah. So,
How many people do you have on your board now?
they're between our advisory committee and our board. There are 13 of us. This is a shot from our Brewing Awareness for Autism event last year. We're holding it again this year in April 26th, which is a Friday night, at the Salt Creek Grill in Rumson, New Jersey. We just put tickets on sale for this.
Oh, okay.
So if anybody wants to come up to Monmouth County, if you're watching online or whatever it is, please come up and join us. It's a great night. Tickets are $65. All the proceeds go to the two programs that I mentioned earlier.
Right. And this is a
It's a fundraiser.
fundraiser?
Yep.
And this is okay.
Yep. So this is actually from the event last year. This is my wife Donna with me here at the event, and it's a great night. We have a band that comes out and plays. It's open bar for a couple hours, and we get some great local community sponsors. Anybody out there who wants to sponsor it, of course, get in touch with us. But
And that's April 26th?
April 26th, Friday night. Yep.
The tickets are available at autismmvp.org. And this is, I think, that was another event that we just saw?
Yeah, that was a walk event that we also hold every year. That's our son Gavin there, and then his uncle Robert is with us as well. So yeah, we had this year will be I can't believe I'm saying this. This year, 2019 in November, will be our 5th annual walk event.
Wonderful.
And I can't believe we've been doing it for 5 years. It just sort of blows me away. But it's growing, and we want to keep growing and making a difference.
Now, how are you growing the foundation?
Yeah, so that's really sort of next steps for us. Okay. We've been able to really do some wonderful work and raise a tremendous amount of money really just over a few years with having a couple of events a year. But now we're ready for the next steps in terms of strategic growth. And that's we're working very hard now behind the scenes on that. And what does that mean with Monmouth? What can it mean beyond that? We know, like I said earlier, that there's really a need for what we're doing.
Yeah.
And again, we're doing something that we think and we know is different, and that's important. And this could grow to something big like Autism Speaks, which is now spearheading the initiative and usually is the growth and driver behind Autism Awareness Month here in April.
So what will you at Autism MVP be doing during Autism Awareness Month, and what are some of the goals for the month?
Two things. It's awareness for what we're doing in our programs and trying to grow that. It's the event I mentioned at the end of the month. And then we're working on some other programs where we're going to try to find some community partners where, perhaps they'll take some proceeds from their sales at a restaurant or a car wash or a dealership and maybe pick a day out of the month and then donate a certain percentage of that sales back to us. So we're working on that initiative right now and excited about it. So.
How do you reach out to those organizations? Is it one-to-one?
A lot of it's either one-to-one. A lot of it's just finding lists of the biggest companies in the area.
Sure.
And you know this, Jim. It's like you and I, old friends here. It's like leverage your network.
Right. Who do you know?
Yeah, exactly right.
It must be interesting too. I'm sure that there are other parents out there that have the same situation that you encountered that are also in business,
right?
And have a way of supporting their own favorite charity, if you will.
They do, and a lot of times we've worked before with a law firm that representing parents who might have to. Get some help with their IEP or work with the school district on that. Maybe it's a pediatric dentist who caters to special needs of children, things like that. So there are many different ways to really work with different kinds of businesses and get them interested in what we're doing. And a lot of times it aligns with what their business objectives and goals are as well.
Will you be doing any other organized events during the month?
That's the only one for right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the only one for right now. So, like I mentioned, we're all volunteers. We all have other full-time commitments, and it's an absolutely wonderful group of people that dedicate their time and make these things happen and make the events happen and make the programs possible. So.
Now, for you, this has been kind of a passion project, and I know you have a professional career, but how do you bring that passion and that experience to bear with the foundation? It's interesting to see how you've grown into this role as kind of a organizer of a nonprofit.
Right.
It's something you probably wouldn't have expected.
No, I wouldn't have expected it, and you know, sometimes life doesn't, you know, we don't choose the paths that we think are going to happen, right? You know,
Things happen.
Things happen, right. And yeah, if you'd asked me 10, 15 years ago, would I be running a volunteer nonprofit for any reason, I would have said, can't imagine that. Can't imagine why that would come to be. But here I am.
Yeah.
And I thoroughly enjoy it. Love working with the people that are part of it. I love that when I tell our story and people start to understand the need and why the need is there, that people go, wow, that makes a lot of sense, great. And keep doing what you're doing. And to hear that kind of encouragement keeps us going, keeps the fuel going for us, and you know, keeps the focus there.
Well, thank you for sharing that story with me and telling me a little bit more about this.
Yeah.
People want to find out more, it's autismmvp.org. And I encourage you to reach out to Keith through the website, autismmvp.org. Reminder that April is Autism Awareness Month. Their event is April 26th in Rumson, New Jersey. I also thank you for being our guest today.
My pleasure.
And thank you for watching. I want to remind all our viewers that I look forward to hearing your story. Give me a call at 215-266-5943 or email me at jim@jhdenterprises.com with any questions about our show today, my guest Keith Green, or any other questions you might have. Remember that everyone has a story, but not everyone knows how to tell that story. Thank you for joining us today.